She was 3 years old. Her parents put her to bed at 7 o'clock that evening, in her favorite pink and white Marks & Spencer pajamas, the ones with Eeyore on them. They tucked in her comfort blanket. They left her stuffed toy, Cuddle Cat, on the pillow beside her, and then they walked 55 meters to have dinner. By 10 o'clock that night, she was gone. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann is, by any measure, the most widely reported missing child case in modern history. 18 years have passed. Hundreds of detectives across 3 countries have worked the case. British taxpayers have spent over £13 million on the investigation alone. And as of today, not one person has ever been charged. Not one arrest. Not one conviction. Madeleine has never been found. What I am about to walk you through today is the full story, from the night she vanished, to the investigation that followed, to the one man authorities believe knows exactly what happened to her, and why, as of right now, he is walking free. Stay with me, because this case has more layers than most people realize, and some of what I'm going to tell you will genuinely disturb you. Let's start at the beginning. The McCanns arrived in Praia da Luz, Portugal, on April 28, 2007. It was a spring holiday, 7 nights in the Algarve, booked through the British travel company Mark Warner. Jerry McCann was a cardiologist. Kate McCann was a GP. They had 3 children, Madeleine, who would turn 4 in just 9 days, and 2-year-old twins, Sean and Amélie. Praia da Luz is a small coastal village, population around 1,000, that Brits had nicknamed Little Britain because of how many UK families holidayed there every summer. The Ocean Club resort where the McCanns were staying was relaxed, family-friendly, sun-soaked, exactly the kind of place you'd take your kids. They were joined by 7 friends, 4 couples, all with children of their own. Every evening that week, the 9 adults had dinner together at the resort's open-air tapas restaurant. It overlooked the pool. It was approximately 55 meters from the apartment where the children slept. The night of May 3rd was no different from the nights before it, except that this time, the children weren't checked on by staff. Instead, the parents had arranged to take turns walking back to check on their kids themselves, roughly every 30 minutes. On May 3rd, Madeleine and the twins were put to bed at around 7 o'clock. Jerry and Kate joined their friends for dinner at 8:30 p.m. That was the last time either parent saw all 3 of their children safe. At around 9 o'clock that evening, Jerry McCann walked back to the apartment to check on the children. He entered through the unlocked patio doors at the back. The parents had deliberately left them unlocked so they could come and go without waking anyone. He looked in on the bedroom. All 3 children appeared to be asleep. He noted one thing that seemed slightly odd. The bedroom door, which he remembered leaving slightly ajar, was now almost fully open. He closed it again. He returned to dinner. Just minutes after Jerry left, his friend Jane Tanner also walked past the apartment on her way to check on her own children next door. That's when she saw something she would spend the next 15 years trying to explain. She saw a man, walking away from the direction of the McCann's apartment, carrying a small child. The child had blonde hair, pale skin, and was dressed in light-colored pajamas. The child appeared to be sleeping or unconscious. Jane Tanner reported this to police. It would become one of the most debated sightings in the entire investigation. At the time, no one thought much of it. A man carrying a sleeping child. That happens on holiday. What she didn't know was that by the time she got back to the table, Madeleine McCann was already gone. At around 9:30 p.m., a second member of the group, Matthew Oldfield, offered to check on the McCann children when he went to look in on his own. He peeked inside. The bedroom door was wide open again. He heard nothing. He left without fully confirming Madeleine was in her bed. Kate McCann walked to the apartment herself at around 10 o'clock. She entered through the patio doors. She walked down the hallway. The children's bedroom door was standing wide open. She walked inside. The twins were in their beds. She looked for Madeleine. The bed was empty. The cover was pulled back. Cuddle Cat was still on the pillow, but Madeleine was gone. Kate also noticed something else. The bedroom window was open. The exterior shutters had been raised. The curtains were open. She was certain she had closed them all before leaving. She ran back out of the apartment, across the pool area, and burst through the door of the tapas restaurant screaming, "Madeleine's gone. Someone has taken her." This is the first detail I want you to sit with, because investigators have been sitting with it for 18 years, and it still doesn't add up cleanly. The open window. From the outside, it looked like a break-in point. The bedroom window faced a quiet street. The shutters had been raised from the outside, or so the early narrative went. This was the detail that dominated the first wave of media coverage. Someone had pried open the shutters, climbed in through the window, and taken Madeleine from her bed while she slept. But here's where it gets complicated. Those exterior shutters, according to forensic investigators, showed no signs of forced entry, no scratches, no damage, no evidence that anyone had physically broken through them from outside. And here's the second problem. The patio doors at the back of the apartment were unlocked the entire evening. The parents had left them that way intentionally. If someone wanted to get into that apartment quietly and without leaving a trace, those unlocked patio doors were the obvious entry point. So the question that investigators and analysts have asked ever since is this: if an intruder entered through the unlocked patio doors, why would they stop to open the bedroom window and raise the shutters from the inside before leaving, especially while carrying a child? Why create evidence of a point of entry that, if examined closely, showed no signs of forced entry at all? Some investigators believe the window was opened by the abductor as a prepared exit route. Others have suggested it may have been staged. No conclusion has ever been officially confirmed. What is confirmed is this: the Portuguese police initially treated that open window as the most important physical detail in the apartment. It became the center of their early theory about what happened. And then, 6 weeks later, their theory changed entirely. 2 weeks into the investigation, Portuguese police were focused on the Jane Tanner sighting. She had seen a man carrying a child. She described him as medium build, dark hair, walking away from the resort. But in late May 2007, a second sighting came in, and this one would eventually become far more significant to investigators. An Irish family, Martin and Mary Smith, had been visiting Praia da Luz on holiday. They came forward to report that on the night of May 3rd, at approximately 10 o'clock, essentially the same time Kate McCann discovered Madeleine missing, they had seen a man walking on a street about 500 yards from the Ocean Club apartment. He was carrying a young girl. The child was blonde. She had pale skin. She was wearing light-colored pajamas. She was barefoot, and she appeared to be asleep, completely limp in his arms. The man was described as mid-30s, between 5'7" and 5'9", slim to normal build, short brown hair. He was wearing cream or beige trousers. He was walking purposefully away from the Ocean Club in the direction of Rua 25 de Abril, toward the beach. By 2013, Scotland Yard had concluded that this Smith family sighting was likely the actual moment of the abduction, the moment Madeleine was being carried away. The timeline fit. The description fit. The direction fit. Martin Smith made a statement in 2008 that added one more layer to this detail. He said that after watching media coverage of Jerry McCann, Madeleine's father, walking off a plane, he had a sudden, deeply unsettling thought. He said the way the man he saw that night carried the child reminded him of the way Jerry McCann walked. Now, to be absolutely clear, Martin Smith later clarified that he was not accusing Jerry McCann. He said it was simply an observation about a walking style that triggered the memory. Jerry McCann has never been formally suspected in relation to that sighting, and no evidence has ever connected him to it. But that statement was seized on by conspiracy theorists for years, and it contributed to one of the most damaging chapters in this entire investigation, the period when the parents themselves became official suspects. On September 7, 2007, 4 months after Madeleine vanished, Portuguese police called Kate McCann in for questioning. What was meant to be an interview turned into something very different. Kate was questioned for 11 hours. At the end of that day, both she and Jerry were formally declared arguidos, a Portuguese legal status meaning they were official suspects in their own daughter's disappearance. The theory Portuguese investigators were pursuing at this point was a stark one, that Madeleine had died inside the apartment, possibly in an accident, and that her parents had concealed her body, staged an abduction, and spent the weeks since conducting an elaborate cover-up. Supporting this theory, they said, was forensic evidence. British sniffer dogs, specially trained cadaver dogs called Eddie and Keela, had been brought in to assist with the investigation. The dogs indicated the presence of cadaver scent in the McCann family's rental car, which they had hired 3 weeks after Madeleine disappeared. They also indicated in the apartment itself. Biological material was sent to a forensic laboratory in Birmingham. The initial reports suggested possible DNA matches to Madeleine. Headlines exploded worldwide. Then, the results came back in full. The laboratory concluded the evidence was inconclusive. The DNA profile was incomplete and too degraded to confirm any match. The cadaver dog indications, while noted, were not considered standalone proof of anything. Forensic experts pointed out that Kate McCann was a practicing GP. She regularly worked around deceased patients, which could explain any cadaver scent traces associated with her clothing. In July 2008, Portugal's Attorney General formally closed the investigation, citing a lack of evidence against anyone, including the McCanns. Jerry and Kate McCann were cleared. Their arguido status was lifted, but the damage had been done. The Portuguese detective who led the investigation, Gonçalo Amaral, had already gone to the press with his personal theory that Madeleine had died in the apartment and the parents had covered it up. He was removed from the case in October 2007 after criticizing British police publicly. He then wrote a book. The McCanns sued him for libel and won. The Portuguese investigation was officially closed, and Madeleine was still missing. In 2011, 4 years after Madeleine disappeared, the British Metropolitan Police launched their own formal inquiry, Operation Grange. It was initiated after a direct personal appeal from Madeleine's parents to then Prime Minister David Cameron, and Cameron agreed. This was unusual. It was, in some ways, unprecedented for the British government to fund a full-scale investigation into a crime that had technically occurred on foreign soil and had already been investigated and closed by another country's police force. But Operation Grange moved forward. The senior investigating officer announced publicly that the Met was treating Madeleine's disappearance as a criminal act by a stranger, most likely a planned abduction or possibly a burglary gone wrong. Investigators had found that there had been a significant increase in burglaries in the Praia da Luz area in the months before May 2007. 2 burglaries had occurred in the McCann's own apartment block in the 17 days before Madeleine vanished. There was a theory that an intruder had targeted the apartment expecting it to be empty and encountered something unexpected. By 2013, the Met had released e-fit images of 2 men they wanted to trace in connection with that night, including an image of the man seen by the Smith family. They had eliminated a number of persons of interest. The investigation was progressing, but progress in a case like this is not linear. It is expensive, slow, and often invisible from the outside. Operation Grange has, at various points, employed dozens of detectives. It has cost British taxpayers over £13 million. It has been criticized by former police officials who question whether that level of public resource is appropriate for one case, while the families of other missing children receive no such attention. It is a fair question. It is also a question the McCanns have had to live with. As of 2026, Operation Grange is still open. The UK Home Office approved an additional £86,000 in funding to extend the inquiry through 2026 and into 2027. The team is small now, but it has not stopped. In June 2020, something happened that changed this case in a way nothing had since 2007. German prosecutors held a press conference and announced that they had a prime suspect. His name was Christian Brueckner. He was 43 years old. He was German. And in 2020, he was already sitting in a German prison, serving a 7-year sentence for the 2005 rape of a 72-year-old American woman in Portugal, in the Algarve. the same region, the same area. German prosecutors said they had concrete evidence that Christian Brueckner had killed Madeleine McCann. Let me tell you who this man is. Christian Brueckner has a criminal history that spans decades and countries. His record includes convictions for child sexual abuse, drug trafficking, burglary, and violent sexual offenses. He is described by those who knew him in Portugal as a loner, someone who moved between odd jobs and petty crime, who drove a distinctive Jaguar and later a camper van, and who had lived in and around the Algarve, including in a cottage approximately 1 mile from the Ocean Club resort, for years before Madeleine disappeared. Here is what investigators say connects him directly to the night of May 3, 2007. Cell tower data places Christian Brueckner's mobile phone at or near the location of the McCann's apartment at approximately 9 o'clock that evening, roughly 1 hour before Madeleine was reported missing. A call was received by his phone within proximity of apartment 5A. The morning after Madeleine vanished, Brueckner transferred the registration of his Jaguar into someone else's name. Shortly after, he left Portugal entirely and returned to Germany. His camper van, a distinctive yellow Volkswagen T3, was later identified as having been in the Praia da Luz area at the time. Investigators also found, during searches of a property associated with Brueckner in Germany, photographs and videos of a deeply disturbing nature, including material related to child sexual abuse. Some of this material appeared to have been produced in Portugal, and then there is the testimony of a man named Helge Busching. In 2017, Busching told British detective Mark Draycott that he had encountered Brueckner at a festival in 2008, just 1 year after Madeleine disappeared. According to Busching's account, Brueckner told him something. He said, "It was strange she didn't scream when she was taken." Busching said he gave this no particular thought at the time. It was only years later, when he connected Brueckner to the McCann case, that the weight of those words hit him. That statement, unverified, uncorroborated in court, has since become one of the most chilling pieces of circumstantial evidence in the entire investigation. German prosecutors stated publicly that they believed Madeleine was dead, making this the first time any official authority had formally moved away from the possibility that she was still alive. Kate and Jerry McCann released a statement on their website. They wrote, "We will never give up hope of finding Madeleine alive, but whatever the outcome may be, we need to know, as we need to find peace." On September 17, 2025, a black Audi pulled out of Sande prison in northern Germany. Christian Brueckner walked free. He had served his full 7-year sentence for the 2005 rape, and because German prosecutors had never formally charged him in connection with Madeleine McCann's disappearance, despite publicly naming him as their prime suspect 5 years earlier, there was nothing to keep him behind bars. He was fitted with an electronic ankle tag. His passport was confiscated. He was ordered to remain in Germany, but he was free. In September 2025, before his release, the Metropolitan Police had formally requested an interview with Brueckner. He declined. In June 2025, German police, with Portuguese cooperation, conducted an extensive search of scrubland and abandoned buildings between Praia da Luz and the cottage where Brueckner had lived in 2007. They used heavy machinery, ground-penetrating radar, JCBs tearing through the earth. The search concluded with no definitive findings. In 2023, authorities had searched the Arade Reservoir, approximately 30 miles from where Madeleine disappeared. Several items were recovered for forensic analysis. No official announcement has been made about what those items revealed. After his release, Brueckner moved briefly to Kiel, then to Neumünster. Media attention forced him to leave both places. By late 2025, he was living on social welfare payments of around €1,000 a month, moving between motels and homeless shelters across Germany. He has not been charged. He has not been arrested. He continues to deny any involvement in Madeleine's disappearance, and the case, after 18 years and £13 million, remains officially unsolved. I want to be honest with you about something. After 18 years, there is still an enormous amount we do not know about what happened to Madeleine McCann. We do not know officially, how she left that apartment. We do not know whether she walked, was carried, was unconscious, or was taken while asleep. We do not know whether the open window was a point of entry, a point of exit, or neither. We do not know exactly who the man was that the Smith family saw carrying a young girl at 10 o'clock that night, though Scotland Yard believes that sighting represents the most accurate record of the abduction. We do not know what Christian Brueckner was doing that night. We have cell tower data that places his phone near the scene. We have his abrupt departure from Portugal the next day. We have a second-hand statement about what he allegedly said at a festival a year later. But we have not heard it directly from him, because he refuses to speak. We do not know if Madeleine is alive. German prosecutors believe she is dead. But believing something and proving it in a court of law are two very different things. And the legal threshold for prosecution in Germany is by the assessment of multiple legal experts significantly higher than in the United Kingdom or United States. Circumstantial evidence, no matter how damning, is not, on its own, sufficient to bring charges under the German legal system. In early 2026, the Epstein documents released by the U.S. Department of Justice contained a witness testimony from 2009 describing a woman resembling Ghislaine Maxwell traveling with a child who appeared to cover her right eye, the same eye where Madeleine had a rare condition called a coloboma, a distinctive dark marking in the iris. The witness said the child appeared to be around 6 years old, which would match Madeleine's age in 2009. This detail has been noted and examined. No confirmed connection has been established. A Polish woman named Julia Wandelt came forward in 2023, claiming to be Madeleine, citing a similar eye condition. DNA testing confirmed she had no genetic connection to the McCann family. She was later charged with stalking Kate and Jerry McCann, and through all of it, every false lead, every devastating dead end, every headline and documentary and conspiracy theory, Kate and Jerry McCann have kept searching. Their website, findmadeleine.com, remains active. Age progression images have been updated to show what Madeleine might look like at 22 years old, the age she would be today. She would have celebrated her 23rd birthday in May of this year. There is a photograph taken at 2:29 in the afternoon on the day Madeleine McCann disappeared. Kate took it at the pool. Madeleine is sitting next to her father and her little sister. She is squinting in the sunlight. She is wearing a pink shirt. She looks like every 3-year-old on holiday looks, slightly sunburned, a little tired, entirely unbothered by the world. 7 hours and 31 minutes later, she was gone. No one has ever answered for it. The people who love her have never stopped looking. The investigators who work this case have never stopped pushing, and the world, quite simply, has never stopped asking. If you know anything about what happened to Madeleine McCann, you can contact the Metropolitan Police through Operation Grange or contact Crime Stoppers anonymously. Every lead matters. Even 18 years later, every lead matters. And whatever you believe about this case, whatever theory feels right to you, the only thing that is certain is that a little girl went to sleep in her pajamas with her cuddle cat on the pillow beside her, and she never came home. That is the only fact that has never changed. I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think happened that night? And do you believe justice is still possible? Or has this case become too cold, too complicated, too tangled to ever reach a courtroom? Tell me below. I read every single comment. And if you want to be here when the next development breaks in this case, because it will break, it always does, make sure you are subscribed with the notification bell on. The moment something moves, you will be the first to know. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the next one.